Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Vale Whitehorse District Council Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Catherine Foxwell, and I'll be chairing this meeting with Adriana Partridge and Tim Marie from Senior Management Team and Candida Basilio from Democratic Services in support. This meeting is being held in Abbey House, Abingdon. It's being recorded but not broadcast live, and it will be shared on our YouTube channel later on. Voting members of this committee are here in person as required, and we have officers and cabinet members in the room and joining remotely for the items on our agenda this evening. So just a couple of points of housekeeping. If those of you who are online could keep your microphones muted, please, while not speaking, that would be really helpful. But please do raise your virtual hands or wave physically if you'd like to speak. For those of us who are in the room, the evacuation procedure in the event of an emergency is to evacuate through the nearest exit, which is from the corridor to our right, and then please assemble in the car park somewhere shady at assembly point 9. If anyone needs a break, there's water in the foyer and a toilet as well, but we will take a quick break between substantial items if the first item goes on for a fair amount of time. We'll see. Please keep mobile phones silent or off, and committee members, unless your phones are where you have your meeting papers, please don't use them during the meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll confirm that the recording has ended, and please remember to sign out as you leave. So this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting, but we don't have any of the members of the public registered to speak with us this evening. So let's start then. Chair's announcements, item 1 on the agenda. So since the reshuffles following the AGM on in May, we've had a few changes to this committee. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Sue Call and also Councillor Kira Bentley, who isn't here at the moment, to our committee, but to also formally minute our thanks, please, to Councillor Hayley Gascoigne and Councillor Oliver Forder, who've taken up new roles in the Cabinet and as Chair of the Council, respectively. And I'd also like to give thanks to Councillor Debbie Hallett, who has given many years of service to the scrutiny of this council, but has now resigned as a councillor and is no longer on this committee. So we have one main item of business on our agenda this evening, and that's the first annual delivery plan for our new council plan. We'll be taking this item before our work programme discussion this evening, as Councillor Forsham has to leave, and then our work programme discussion might be a bit more substantial than usual as well, because we have some items to catch up on. That's all I have to say in terms of announcements. Apologies for absence. We don't have any apologies for absence, do we? Okay. Here is Councillor Roberts. Hello. Okay, for those of you, it's most of you actually, who were here the last meeting, which was on the 20th of March this year, when we discussed affordable housing grant process and the Beacon Action Plan. Hopefully you've all read the minutes of that meeting. And if I could please have a proposer and a seconder that they are a true record of that meeting, or any comments that you wish to make if you think they're not. I propose they're accurate. Propose. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Second, Councillor Batstone. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll sign them at the end of the meeting. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Do any of the members of the committee have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, or non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting? No? All right, thank you. You can also declare at the beginning of the item as well. You realise you have. I have no item of urgent business to mention under item 5. Item 6, public participation. We don't have any members of the public registered to speak to us this evening, which brings us to item number 7, reports for the committee, and this is at the heart of the Vale annual delivery plan 2025 to 26. I'm very pleased to have Councillor Andy Forsham, cabinet member, in the room, as well as Marie, who is Head of Policy and Programmes, and also Rachel Hyde, who is Insight and Policy Team Leader online. Thank you all for coming this evening. Councillor Fulsham, can I ask you to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be here tonight. I know that this is the fruition of what seems like a couple of years' work, a couple of years of hard work to formulate our new council plan. And this is, if I can say, where the rubber hits the road, if we can come up with a slightly more environmentally friendly version of that, this is where we actually put it into action. This is where we start delivering on stuff that we've promised our residents, that residents will be out there and see us at work and delivering stuff that they've told us are their priorities, because we've talked to them in our consultations. And it's going to be measured in a way that we can actually demonstrate our progress. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, going to go through every step of the delivery plan and say, and this relates to council plan priority 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, because all of that should be very familiar. It's very familiar to me, very familiar to my Cameron colleagues, and I'm sure because you have very much been a valued part of the process of formulating the council plan and seeing it through. It'd be like teaching my proverbial granny to suck eggs. So I'm not going to go back over that. What I do want to highlight to you today is the way that we are seeing a revised reporting format. And in particular, you have seen the attachment, which shows the icons for how things are going to be delivered, whether it's direct action with that sort of clenched fist, or the handshake for working in partnership, or the megaphone where it's exerting influence. And I'm pleased to say there's relatively few of the items are just the exerting influence. It always brings to mind the story of the fisherman saying, being asked, how many fish do you catch? Oh, not that many, but I influence quite a lot. So this is meant to be a very clear view of what we're delivering. And I'm particularly grateful to senior management who've been through this with a fine-tooth comb, doing some check and challenge, particularly on the reporting, where if we form back on the, we're just going to have a narrative report on this aim. So actually, can we really pin this down to some quantitative? So how many leisure centres have we decarbonised? How much affordable housing have we delivered? Where it's actually a fairly clear pass or fail. It's, are you on track? Are you falling behind? Are you so far behind that you're not within a country mile? Or are you exceeding it? That should become really clear to our members, but also our residents. And which brings me to the other part I really am delighted to highlight is the new reporting dashboards, which we've had a preview of. They are still very much under development, but we're now tapping into the council's live systems to say, this is where we're at, this is what's being delivered. So reporting doesn't become a quarterly major headache for staff. It is, as far as possible, add straight out of the live systems so we can see what's up. It will then take some formatting, and some stuff does still need to be pulled out manually, but we are in a much better position. And because I'm the sort of person that said a picture paints a better picture than 1,000 words, the graphical trend lines, graphs, see where things are changing, how things are going, and an indication on the legend. Yes, more is better, or lower is better. So people know what can read from those. And the idea is that it's not just accessible to members, but it's also stuff that our residents can look upon our website and see, okay, so that's what my council has delivered. I'm very happy to take any questions. I'm very glad to have Marie and Rachel here this evening to help me with any more technical deep dive bits, but please ask me what you wish.
Thank you, Councillor Fulsham. Would anybody like to start?
Thank you, Chair. The report, I think, is very well laid out and very clear. Being able to go through it essentially line by line, I think, is very helpful. I had a question about the dashboard, because I also like looking through graphs and data and things. Could you just talk a little bit about the dashboard and how it is an improvement on what the council was doing previously?
Okay, yeah. In previous times, up to now, we've actually had two different approaches to reporting on the old corporate plan. Under the previous administration, it was very much a traffic light system, red, amber, green, whatever, across a whole range of measures. That was revised back into 2020, because I know it was during COVID that officers put together some reporting, and it was very much a series of spreadsheets with status of each corporate plan objective and the constituent parts of it, and how far we got on that. A lot of it was ended with a narrative. This is where we're at, and this is what's. Occasionally, it would come up with completed, and we saw more and more completed as the years went through. But whilst it gave a lot of information, it was not particularly accessible. So that is why we said, as part of this council plan process, we wanted to come up with something that was more accessible. So that is the big change.
Great, thank you.
That's a cool. And then
First, I'd like to say I'm really impressed by this. I really like the way it's easy to read. It's really easy to find things, and I do enjoy the graphics that tell you at a glance what is something that we can kind of have a direct ability to impact on, and those things that we can't. And so I think it's an excellent job. I know how hard you've worked on this, and not just yourself, but the team as well. So, and I think what we've got here is something really powerful. There's a few teeny little things though. When I'm looking at it and I'm thinking. So the first one, I think, when I would be saying, and I know it's just a bit picky, but it's looking at some of the measures.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at the creating healthy, sustainable, inclusive communities, I'm thinking, is this really how you're going to be able to measure that you're having a positive impact? So, for instance, the first one, let's go with that one, why not? Fulfillment of statutory safeguarding duty and the total number of safeguarding referrals. I'm not sure just counting referrals is really going to give us an understanding of whether or not we're actively having an impact there, positive or negative. And just by counting referrals, I'm not sure what that actually tells us, rather than something more qualitative. But I understand why you've gone with a number.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I would just query whether or not that's anything that's actually meaningful and being able to tell us what impact that's had. And my second point, I think, would be, and there is a few of those where there's just looking at a number, but the other one as well, and the providing homes and infrastructure people need. You tell us in the text where we want to be, and it talks about there. We will have solved many of the challenges facing residents. I think it would have been really nice to understand what those challenges are, to be able to then relate all the activity that's being listed as going to be undertaken, how that is going to actually deal with those challenges, because it alludes to them, but doesn't necessarily kind of give us a real indication of what they are. It's just my thinking on it.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm really liking it.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I really appreciate your comments. Diving into the first one on the statutory safeguarding, that's something that's close to my heart. I've been a school governor for many years, and also I'm now a charity trustee. And getting safeguarding right is front and centre. It's, if you do nothing else, do that right, is my approach. And I think here it's more a case of we need to spot trend line, because if you suddenly see actually we're getting no safeguarding activity whatsoever, you've got to be very worried, because it suggests that you're not looking hard enough. Equally, if you find that it suddenly drops off or suddenly spikes, you need to know why. Is it that we're getting better at encouraging reporting, or have we suddenly solved a major issue somewhere? So the numbers will actually help us illuminate stuff rather than actually be a raw measure. So I this one where I've been looking at the trend lines more than anything. As for the building healthy and sustainable and inclusive communities, yes, I appreciate those words are the challenges that our residents face are broad. It's, in some ways, it's got to be broad, because we couldn't predict every challenge that our residents will have. And this is the sort of heading that we'd see a lot of the activities that we had to do during COVID-19 would fall under, because it's part of keeping our residents safe, part of ensuring an effective response. And we can't do the Donald Rumsfeld unknown unknowns thing. So yes, I can appreciate the desire for a more unpicking of that particular paragraph, but I think we do need a catch-all of that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dunham.
Yeah, so so the report was very, I could see a lot of effort that's gone into it. What you said about it coming, the data is updated live, so does that mean a whole lot of new data has had to be added to the database, so that, like when a leisure centre is fully decarbonised, a number gets changed and that gets reflected in the report? There must be a lot of new data coming into the system. Yeah.
Actually, this it's part of the swan swimming on the Thames. The lakes going 20 to a dozen under the surface. One of the early decisions that we took was to invest in some enterprise reporting software. It's part of the Microsoft Power BI suite that will actually plug into a lot of our systems to feed stuff. And where we've outlined in the final column how often we're reporting, say annually, 6 monthly or quarterly, part of the live feed means that where we can tap into our internal systems and they're updating faster than that, that will feed through. So that we may have committed to annually, but we'll find actually do stuff 6 monthly or quarterly, and that will be part of it. But yes, there is the data feed underlying it, but in many ways it's part of equipping the council. The team are making good use of these facilities regardless. So it wasn't that we spent how much money on ERP just to drive reporting on the council plan. It's, we were buying into this anyway, and it's actually a very powerful tool to help our reporting.
That's very commendable. But Chair, could I ask another question? My other question was, previously in this committee we discussed the beacon and we discussed playing field strategies. I couldn't find either of those in the report. Is that because this is just focusing on key topics? It's not it doesn't cover every aspect of what the council does.
It's a very good question, and in many ways what we concentrate on through the council plan reporting is the stuff that isn't part of the day-to-day business as usual stuff. you will see the same themes going through the day-to-day stuff. It's how we do them. But this is reporting on the stuff that isn't part of business as usual. You don't find much about recycling rates, waste collection, and so on. That's going on. It's clearly part of what we're committed to. It's clearly reflected under several of these themes, but it won't be there in the detail because if we're not doing that, we're failing our statutory duties. So it's not there. I mean, stuff like the beacon will be part of the thriving communities strand because actually, cultural life is part of having a thriving community, but it's kind of further down the filter.
Thank you.
Sebastian.
Yes, this may refer to other parts of the report as well, but I was looking at extreme weather events paragraph, and one of the mentions there is the Sunnywell flood alleviation scheme. Now, I didn't think the district was really very involved with that. I thought that was basically a county project. So why is it part of the plan?
You are quite correct, Councillor Backstone. Oxford County Council is the primary flood authority, and it's their primary responsibility. I only remember part of the Sunnywell scheme, but I think it involved a lot of partnership working across various councils, Environment Agency, and Thames Water. So it was very much we're working in partnership on this. You're right to highlight extreme weather events as actually being part of the climate adaptation stuff that we are committed to do. So there will be working in partnership for stuff like that. But yes, we're not the lead on anything like that.
Yes, I mean immediately below you said it says technical services delivery, and I'm not quite sure what that means.
That would be John Backley's technical services team, who are very good at such things and designing stormwater outfalls and things like that. So they would have added some of their own expertise in that side.
This would be true of the emergency response and work programme immediately below as well.
Emergency response is a separate thing, and that's where there is an event that calls for coordination across councils, and we have our deputy chief executives very much fields every call that comes in that requires district council to be on standby for. Quite often it's like supporting displaced residents that suddenly find they can't be in their houses, they need to be put up in a community centre or a school or something like that. So we're aware of that. That's emergency response side of it.
Because it said, I mean, it's got the fist, as it were, so it doesn't imply that that's cooperative function.
Well, we're very delivering the
You're delivering that.
support for listen to her out of their house. Sorry.
I've got Andrew Busby online with his hand up, and also Adriana is saying she can respond to this as well specifically. So Andrew, did you want to jump in on this first?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good evening all. I just wanted to confirm that the team does support County Council, Oxford County Council on all flooding alleviation schemes. So where we come along and get involved is supporting locally. We also engage with the Environment Agency, and the team provides design and build support where applicable. So yes, OCC is the lead authority, but we are part of that group and assist with enforcement where necessary as well.
Thank you,
Thank
Andrew.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the emergency response plan, we are a category 1 responder within the Civil Contingencies Act, so we have a direct responsibility for emergency response working alongside the county. On this target specifically, it's about supporting communities. So as part of our statutory responsibility, we advise communities on their own emergency response plans within their neighbourhoods. And so that's what that line specifically refers to. But that's why it's a fist action, because it is direct action for us.
Okay, thanks. Yes, that's great.
I'm going to follow up that slightly. I'm slightly wary of us getting into a what about my pet project discussion. But I did want to follow that one up because my question is really about, you talk in paragraph 8 about a rigorous system of prioritisation, and that suggests to me that things are in and some things are out. So, for example, one example of a big thing, and following on from this comment about partnership working with the county, might be, for example, Grove Railway Station, as to how we can influence that. So so that is one example, but generally I'm interested in this prioritisation and what's not come into this, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it does make sense, and it is quite a thorny issue because we are dealing with the proverbial elephant in the room of LGR, and we're very conscious. I've had to sort of lean on senior management team on this for not committing ourselves to stuff that we can't actually deliver because will no longer exist. However, we are merged into whichever unitary becomes the government's preferred, where stuff is day-to-day statutory responsibility, like, say, refuse and recycling collection. We know we're going to need to keep on doing that, whatever form we're in. So we will keep on replacing waste collection vehicles as is required. But we can't commit to expenditure on a major capital project that may take place with expenditure after we're no longer here, particularly when we don't have a shadow authority of the successor unitary to say, if we did this, would you be okay with it? Until they exist, we can't actually do anything like that. So yes, that is the way in which some things have had to fall, not necessarily out, but at least find the pause button pressed. I'd hope that stuff like continue to sort of make the case for the Grove Railway Station, which I think is a phenomenally good idea and well overdue, will continue. But yeah, we can't commit to expenditure that take place when we're not around to sign the checks.
That's right.
Yes.
I'll come back to my answer.
The last one might follow on from that, but yes, I think we do have delegated authority as a flood flood to take over some responsibility of the flood schemes, I thought, and I wondered whether the River Ox scheme has come up in the flood alleviation. It was going to be one that was done by Environment Agency, but they've now told us that they're not pursuing that. So I was wondering whether the River Ox flood alleviation scheme is still being worked on. My second question was more about these are all sort of one-liners and they'll be Q1, 2, 3, 4. How will the reporting of this link in with the data hub? Because the data hub has business as usual and trundling along. But after 1 or 2 years, you're going to have sort of 6 to 8 lines of different conclusions. So is there any way that we're looking at how you can then build that into a picture? Because some of these, there's an awful lot of X number and narrative. And it might be, the X number is not going to tell us very much. I'm hoping the narrative will tell us a bit more about the X number. But then, it goes up a bit, goes down a bit, over 8 different reports. Are we going to be able to do anything with that accumulative information? And I have a third question, which was on the LGR one on page 21. That only seems to go up to November 25. My understanding is whatever unitary is promoted by the government before May 2026, we will still have to do business as usual until May 27 when there's a shadow. So why are we stopping at November 25? So that's my third question.
Okay.
Remediation round.
Taking the Ock Valley flooding first off. I've attended meetings with environment agency directors and heard them be very, no, it's not worth us spending the money. The government won't approve this because the damage doesn't mount up to the millions we'd spend on doing an alleviation scheme. Very disappointing. They have committed to work to improve flood resilience within the areas affected within Abingdon. It's close to my heart. I'm a councillor for a ward in Abingdon, not the one that's mainly affected, but we have flooding in my ward, and I'm very concerned about it. So yeah, we are reliant on the Environment Agency moving on these things, and some of the funding that is now coming in from county council for very localised flood alleviation schemes. We're accessing some of that for measures across Abingdon at this stage. As for reporting, I've got to say that we've come a long way with reporting. I don't say we've got the whole picture yet. We are, if I can sort of brandish the template dashboard, you will see that there's a lot of checkboxes here. They might not be immediately obvious. These are checkboxes, and you can click on and click off, so you can compare year by year. So part of it is a longer term report, not just the snapshot of that quarter or that year. It's probably comparisons because the tools are there to.
Is that going to be fed into the data?
I think it will all reside there at the end of the day.
Councillor Common, would you like to just come in on that point? Is that?
Thank you. It was Councillor Thomas leads on the LGR bit, and I could just have an answer. The reason it says November 25 is because this is where we need to get our proposal completed by, so it has to be delivered to the government on the 28th of November. So that's what that refers to. It's not implementation of the of LGR, it's getting the final proposal through. So that's why it's November 25.
So we have no proposals for beyond getting our proposal in. There's no aim for working us up from the proposal to whatever unitary we're about to become.
This is a specific task that says deliver the LGR proposal to government, which is mandated to us to get to hit the deadline of the 28th of November. So that's what that specifically refers to.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other? Does that answer everything, Councillor Roberts? Yeah. You happy? Okay. If I may, I would like to ask about the agile nature of this all online. I'm a historian. I get slightly nervous about ephemeral, agile things. I like versions of record and editions of things that are dated. We have in our report here, we have lots of X's, so to be determined numbers of things. And what I'm interested in is where will there be a version of record? In July 2025, we said we were going to do this. It's now July 2026. The agile stuff online can all change. Actually, you could kind of shift the percentages around, shift the numbers around. And I think in terms of being transparent and keeping us all honest, it'd be useful to have a version of record. I just wondered if there's a plan for that protocol.
Thank you, Chair. Very good to find another historian in the room. I'm a trained historian who now works in IT. And yes, I do love records. I think we will find that we still have a paper report at the point that each annual delivery plan is delivered, summarised and so on. So it won't be that you've got to drill back through the data to find where we were at. After all, committee papers, council papers will still exist, albeit in PDF form. Yes, the agile side of it is, got to say, and I'm conscious that there are those far more up with software development than I am in the room. It's not full on agile. It's more to state that we are looking at a very responsive form of management of projects. It's a growing term. It shows a direction of travel rather than we've got the formal sort of stand-up agile meeting methodology, the scrums and everything else. So I can't promise that we're going to go full on like that, but it's a sign that we are looking at the more responsive, more able to work set up quickly. And I've seen that in some of the stuff we've already been doing, the way we're able to accelerate JLP work, the way we've been able to turn around some of the requests we've had for additional data. Both in the JLP, but also in the readiness for LGR side of it. If we hadn't put this way of working embedded into the council, we wouldn't be in the position that we are, where we're actually able to sort of keep up with things, be responding to things, and put ourselves in the best possible position.
So will all these X's be filled in when the cabinet look at this then? Because there's a lot of X's.
So sorry, I was waiting to see if I could.
Yeah, jump into.
So just to support members, we did say in the report, so the proposed annual review cycle for the plan will be from July when it's adopted to the June of the following year. So in there, we will actually be seeking, when we get the first round of dashboard set up, there will be baseline data that goes in to the dashboard. So then in reviewing the progress over that year, the X's will turn into, I suppose, where we can, we'll have numbers or things to start that process. Then we'll be reviewing what the progress during that year looks like by the time it comes through to June. So then the paper that will come from that process will then be the capture. So to say, in terms of your historical nature, you will then have a report that will say, for the annual delivery plan 25-26, this is where we are at. This shows the progress. This shows either new things that will come on board or things where if they've been completed, they will go on. So that will be the process that we're proposing to take forward.
So I get it now. So it's not saying we would like to do 3 and then at the end of the year you come back and say actually we only did 2. What you're doing is starting with a baseline and then at the end of the year we'll say we've achieved.
Yeah.
So this is perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Batson.
A quick clarification on the yes stroke no, which appears a few times in the report. Presumably if it's no, it just means that particular action is dead.
You
Well, extreme weather events was the first one I came across it.
I expect it would be. We're not reporting on this because it didn't occur.
So I'm not sure what didn't occur because it's an action plan. Which one?
Yeah.
Where that's
Would be on the
extreme weather events. It's the final option, the update of the climate action plan. Developing district level action plans and incorporating them into the annual review.
Okay.
Not quite sure what a no would mean. Is that? Does it just mean you're not going to do it?
Yeah. I think it's more a case of yes, we either achieved it or we didn't. It's as straightforward as that. Another example is the joint local plan. It's a target for it to be examined and adopted, and that's either going to be a pass or a fail. Yes, we did, or no, we didn't.
Some items like that really are pass or fail. Then we've either done what we said we were going to do or we didn't.
Yes, I noticed it with local government reorganisation as well, and I understood that. It's so I'm going to accept it or not.
With the opportunity for a narrative as well to help support that where we can as well.
If that clarifies that, then
I do have one more request, and I don't know if the committee would agree with me, and that is the use of the raised fist as a symbol, because I think that symbol, again, historically has very potent meaning, particularly as a symbol of struggle against oppression and resistance. And so I'm wary of us as a council co-opting it. And I'm wondering if there's a different symbol we can use to express positive action and direct action, because I think it's actually quite a political statement to use that symbol. I think particularly in the context of the news cycle at the moment, I would be very wary of using that as an image in this context.
I do take your point, and I know that the officers that are developing this are going to be, or may already have been, talking with our comms team, who are very good at finding the right emojis and icons to use on things. And I'm sure they will be able to hone our messaging, but keeping the impact, but maybe being a little less, less overtoned.
Just to support, say it's been a working document to this point, so there's another design element that will happen with it. So this isn't the final state that it will be, but absolutely take the point.
All right.
Just to follow up, because Councillor Fox sort of said he wasn't quite sure what the committee might make of that. It didn't occur to me, but I think I would agree with it actually now that it's been said. Maybe like a spade going into the ground or something would be the clip art folder, but
Electric ding. Thank you, Councillor Madison. Has anyone else got any other comments or questions for either Councillor Forsham or for officers?
Just one final one for me. When I'm looking at the customer services digital offer, the icon that's there is one of exerting influence. Just curious, isn't that something that we would have direct control, or should have direct control over, given that it is meant to be us?
Yep.
I mean, that and the benefits digital offer as well. I mean, those two things we are doing, therefore it's not like it's a partnership. Or now I appreciate, sorry, I'll leave
Thank you, Councillor Paul. I do take your point, and yes, the delivery of the digital offer, digital web accessing our services is very much part of what we can do. But where it's the influencing, it's actually getting our residents to take them up and use them. So that is the key part of why it's more of a influencing rather than a effort. And I know they're not completely divorced, because you make it easier to use, then people will use it. But equally, you've got to tell them that it's there, tell them that it's easy, explain that it's easy, and hope for the uptake.
I take your point, but I would argue that is something that we should have control over. If if we're getting our messaging right, if we're, as you say, making it as accessible as it ought to be, then. But you know what? It's an icon. It's not the end of the world. So I'm just going to touch and titch over that. So but thank you.
Excellent, thank you, committee. So this is actually the report we've got is actually the cabinet report, and the recommendation is to cabinet. But I think we can take as read that the recommendation for us is to make any comments to cabinet or any recommendations to cabinet we think should come before they accept this report, which I presume they will. So we've just had the discussion about the icon, but are there other elements of the discussion this evening that anybody feels strongly we want to have as record as being recommended to cabinet?
I'd like to see something about how the accumulated data is presented, and in the paper at the beginning, because I couldn't find anything there that told me how. It just sort of said that was an annex. It didn't say how we were going to use that action plan. So it would be nice to have a paragraph in there explaining how this action plan is then going to feed into the data and the information that's on the website.
Sure,
What I mean.
can't-
I'm a bit of a.
I think section 11, councillor does say that the dashboard will make it accessible and timely, but then there will also be formal performance
So
reporting.
are you saying there
arrangements.
was a dashboard that's going to be for every single one of these actions?
Well, we'll try and build a dashboard for each of the key areas in terms of each of the outcomes that have been contributing towards that.
So
That's what we're building.
Every single line on this document in blue.
Where we can, we will build it as we go. Yeah, that's the idea. So for
Didn't
each of
get
the
that
key areas that's
understanding.
in there, that's where we'll be building it. So we've just given you an illustration of what each one could look like.
Okay. I just wondered, I didn't realise you were going to do one for every single line. I just
No,
wondered
so
if it could be
just
slightly
to be
clearer.
clear, it's not one of those for each line, it's one of those for each.
Yeah, so with the 3 areas,
Well, the 4 areas, yes. The 4 strategic objectives, the priority.
We have some tech wizards, I'm sure. Any other specific recommendations to Cabinet? I think I would suggest, so apart from the comment about the
icons. Yeah.
I think that's a specific. I think we would like to thank everyone for all the work that's been done. I think, as you said, we have had a long process of discussing the council plan, but also we had and I am going to mention it because I proposed it and Councillor Delhart seconded it, the smart targets motion to full council last year. And I think it's clear that has been taken on board and we're now seeing the fruition of that. So I think as far as I'm concerned, I think we're probably all content to thank everyone for their work and wish you luck developing the dashboard.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
thank you, Rachel online. You've been online, but we haven't needed you or. But yeah, great.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to dash, but thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you for coming, Councillor. Let's take a 2-minute break if anybody needs to get a drink of water or top up, and we will start again at 7:50, which is literally 2 minutes. You guys need to shuffle around. I don't think we do need to. Okay, back online. Thank you, everybody. Let's go back to the work programme then, which is item 8 on our agenda, the Vale Scrutiny Work Programme. So, and the reason I did take a quick break is because I'm very grateful to have Andrew Busby online, as well as Councillor Andrew Crawford, who's Cabinet Member for Property, and Councillor Mark Coleman, who's our Cabinet Member for Finance now. Because what we have been doing is following up on an item from last October, related to the budget outturn report and to one specific paragraph within that report, which was related to a variance related to Abbey House. And out of that discussion came some more discussions about our financial relationships with tenants more generally. And so officers and cabinet members I know have been doing a lot of work to follow up those items. And so I'm very pleased to welcome the three of you to our meeting this evening to be able to report back on those two items to us. So Councillor Coleman, are you gonna take this one for us?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. So I should say that sort of recently appointed as member for finance, but thankfully I've got Andy Crawford, who was the previous member for finance, but is also now the cabinet member for housing and property. So hopefully between the two of us, we can give you the members' view, and we've got, as you said, Andrew Busby, who's the specialist. So yeah, anything that we can't answer, hopefully he will be able to. So on the 2nd of October in 2024, the Vale Scrutiny Committee considered the financial outturn report for 23-24, which reported an adverse variance of around £500,000, 500,000. This was predominantly associated with an overestimation of changes to tenants of Abbey House. Additionally, some billing for service charges and recoverable insurance premiums had not been kept up to date for several years. As a result, the efforts to catch up with correct billing had led to a few organisations receiving backdated bills, and the Scrutiny Committee agreed to request the Head of Finance to look closer at service charges in order to understand the issue and report back to the Chair. And so since that meeting, the points arising have been followed up by the Chair of Scrutiny, have been followed up with the Chair of the Scrutiny, with relevant officers and portfolio holders. This included the specific instance referred to in the Scrutiny report regarding Abbey House, and also other property matters which were brought to members and officers' attention. With respect to the Abbey House, the Head of Developments and Corporate Landlord has advised as follows. The Abbey House over-accrual issue arose because the estimates of service charges were made in the years prior to 23-24 and which were accrued for in the accounts for those years. When the actual amounts due were calculated, they were found to be overestimated. As such, no debt has ever been written off, and the Abbey House tenants were only ever billed the correct amounts. We had anticipated more income, therefore, than was in our estimates than we had put together. The primary tenant left Abbey House on the 30th of June in 2024, and the team were up to date with billing for rent and service charges ahead of their departure, albeit billing for the service charge for the period that the primary tenant was in occupation for the first part of 24-25 was based on estimates and is in the process of being reconciled to enable the final bill to be settled. In respect of other property matters, the Head of Developments and Corporate Landlord has reported as follows. Significant effort has been made in recent years to ensure that Vale is billing and receiving the correct amounts due to it from all its various rental arrangements. Whilst billing for the rent has continued, in some cases, billing for service charges and recoverable insurance premiums has not been kept up to date for a number of years. As a result, the effort to catch up with correct billing has led to some organisations receiving backdated bills. There are also a number of outstanding rent reviews, which the team picked up. However, whilst the council initiates these as landlord, it is for both parties to agree the revised rent in accordance with the terms of the lease before the additional rent can be demanded, including any back rent from the data review. Consequently, this has led to further billing, with a number of organisations receiving backdated bills. The new staffing structure for the Developments and Corporate Landlord, which was implemented on the 1st of April of this year, includes resource for strategic property accountancy, and the team will continue to work through the backlog as regularly reported in the members' updates from the Head of Service. Those are the monthly reports we get. Therefore, in many cases, this is a positive direction. We are carrying out our duties under the best value legislation, where we are taking a pragmatic approach and agreeing payment plans with tenants re their backdated amounts. These responses cover all but one of the instances brought to the attention of the members and officers. The other case was in respect of business rates. Business rates are billed by Capita on behalf of the councils, and Capita are required to bill in line with rating lists produced by the Valuation Office agency. The case in point was investigated and dealt with by the council's own revenues and benefits manager in line with business rates regulations. And so, in sum, Officers have investigated the issues raised by the committee and confirmed that steps have been taken in the realm of property management to ensure proper administration of the council's property assets. A lot of work has been undertaken in this area, and the new development and corporate landlord structure provides resources to ensure such administration is kept up to date. The council aims to be a responsible landlord, and as such asks that, if there are issues relating to the administration of properties that members are aware of, that they be brought to the attention of the head of development and corporate landlord. Thanks very much. So I will try and answer questions, bear in mind newly in post, but as I say, ably supported by those who will definitely know better than I do.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman, and I really appreciate all of the detail and the openness in that statement, and as I said, the work that's been done by everybody. A couple of the members who are most familiar with this topic have actually left our committee. But Councillor Crawford, is there anything you wanted to add just at that point before I take any comments from the committee? You're on mute.
What I would say, if I had my microphone on, was it's been acknowledged, I think, in finance that that for many years there's been a shortage of finance. Recently is moved to recruit more. Supporting.
Sorry, Councillor Crawford. It's a really poor line, and actually we didn't catch any of that. Could you perhaps turn your camera off and try again? Probably the heat, I imagine.
All right, I've turned the camera off. Is that any better?
Yeah. Yes, that's much better. Sorry, would you mind saying that again?
Right. So it's certainly the case in finance that they've been short of financial accountants for a number of years, and one of the things we've done over the last couple of years is to increase the numbers. And Simon will be having a financial accountant specifically working to support the finance team. Sorry, to support the property team, which is really important, I think. So therefore, the likelihood of the issues that, particularly regarding to Abbey House, I think are much less likely to arise. You know, clearly, what happened is that we made an estimate. It was a significant overestimate at the end of the day. I would hope that is less likely to happen now. We've got somebody going to be in place to support the property team.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. That's really helpful. Committee, are there any? I should say, probably committee, that it's probably best if we don't discuss the individual circumstances of community groups, because they're not. We haven't asked their permission to discuss particularly financial circumstances. So maybe if you could talk in general terms, but if you do have any questions, please do.
But I could give you feedback that we have the community association that I was dealing with has come to an agreement with the Vale to cover back payments as well as keeping current payments up to date. I'm not sure it's been an easy position to be in, but we have agreed to do back payments and get to a position of zero when we can afford it.
Thank you, that's useful to know. I will just report back from one of our members who knows one of the situations very well. Councillor Mike Piggles, who I did get permission to quote from him. He's sent me an email this morning. So unfortunately, I'm at a trustees meeting this evening, cannot make scrutiny. So I think the question he's asking is how can we be sure this doesn't happen again? And I think both cabinet members have just explained what's being done to ensure that these issues don't arise again. He mentions the 1980 Limitation Act, which perhaps could have been applied where it's difficult to pursue a lease or rent debt older than 6 years. This might be something for Andrew Busby to comment on, but I just wondered if that had been a factor in any of the discussions.
Good evening, Chair. So yeah, that discussion regarding case by case basis review on the legal status of each lease is looked into as part of that approach and negotiation. So it's a case by case review, and the team regularly work with legal services as well.
Great, thank you, Andrew. I would also add then that Councillor Pickles says that this has all been dealt with amicably in the situation that he was involved with, and he particularly wanted to ask if we could mention one of the officers, Gabriel McLaughlin, for how well the situation has been handled, and to note our thanks, or Councillor Pickles' thanks to them particularly, for the work that's been done to create a situation that everybody was able to manage.
Thank you, Chair. I will certainly pass that on. And the surveyor in question has got excellent people skills, so I will make sure I pass that.
Perfect, thank you. I think for me, the concern has always been that clearly we have a duty as a council to make sure that we manage our finances properly, and collecting all the money that is owed to us, because this is public money. But I think we also have a duty to work with our residents and our community groups in a responsible way. And I think there has been some concern about that perhaps we were being quite heavy-handed. But I think what we've got here now is two examples where actually the concerns have been raised and they have been dealt with appropriately and in a way that's been very positive actually by the council.
And Gabriel.
Oh,
Gabriel again.
Gabriel again. So are there any other members of the committee have any other comments or questions to raise, particularly those of you who've been involved in these discussions? No, that's all right.
Oh, it's about Abbey House. I'm not sure of what current status we have in terms of our tenants in Abbey House, but we don't have the major long-term tenant anymore. And I was more reassured by how we'll be working with our communities than maybe how we'll be working with the tenants at Abbey House, and how are we going to make sure that what we ask of our new tenants is actually going to be updated and current for the new income. So what have we put in place for the Abbey House?
Before Andrew answers that, could I just, I'm going to ask Nick to come in just because you need to remember this is a work programme item.
Yeah.
So we're actually, it's not a general property item.
Okay.
We need to focus on what's in the work programme and what's related to it.
Great.
So I think, Andrew, I would ask you not to answer that, and unless Nick disagrees with me.
I don't disagree at all, Chair. Unfortunately, whilst I understand that the relevance to your members, what we're talking about here is something which is going to be discussed and negotiated, and discussion here could adversely affect the council's position on discussions with tenants. So perhaps an offline discussion could be had if some sort of general understanding was wanted by individual members. But as far as public debate goes, I'm afraid I must ask you to close that direction of debate down, please.
Thank you. Advice noted and taken. To bring us back to the work programme then. So I guess the key point of having this discussion is that this is two items on our work programme. Let me just look at them in terms of their names. It is the financial outturn service charges item, which was specifically related to Abbey House, but also it was the community assets item, and it was the financial relationships with tenants item. And the key question for us as a committee is, are we happy on the basis of what we've heard this evening and the work that's been undertaken by officers and by cabinet members for those items to come off of our work programme now? Are we happy that those issues are, if not entirely solved, that the work is ongoing to ensure that these issues, concerns have been sorted?
Yeah, agree. Yes, I think reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Thanks ever so much then, I think. But I would say, I mean, clearly there is work going, clearly there's recruitment happening. And as a scrutiny, I've said this, I'm sure, multiple times before, but one of the training points that stuck in my mind very clearly when I was given training as a scrutiny was that one of the fair roles for scrutiny is to support cabinet members in things that keep them awake at night. So I would invite the cabinet members, if this does continue to, if you're not content that this is solved, do get in touch with us at any time and we can pick it back up. But I'm also conscious of a discussion that I had with Adriana earlier, is that this also in some ways crosses over into audit and governance. So it may be that this is something that audit and governance pick up as well. But Andrew Busby, I'd particularly like to thank you for all the work that you and your team have done. I know it's been a huge amount of work in the corporate landlord team, development property. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
And I appreciate all the work. And please also note thanks to Simon Hewings, who's not on the call this evening, but who has also done a huge amount of work with his team as well. Great. Thank you ever so much. So in terms of the work programme, the only other comment I've got to make is that I received on Friday, I believe, and I shared with this committee earlier, an item that's going to joint scrutiny next Monday, which is the Task and Finish Group report on the direction of scrutiny over the next couple of years. So if anybody does have any comments, I'm very, very happy to take forward comments from Vale Scrutiny as well to joint scrutiny next week. And indeed, if any of you want to register to speak at joint scrutiny, you're very welcome as well. So that is a relevant item. Are there any other items on the work programme that anybody would like to comment on or query? I would be very keen to confirm a date for us to look at local government reorganisation and to ensure that that is well ahead of November.
Speak to that. Yes, we are looking at September. I think with local government reorganisation, we are generally trying to organise ourselves across the Oxfordshire and West Yorkshire patch, but we are aiming for September. However, it is as you appreciate, it is a really tight deadline, and every 24 hours is critical to officers. So we might not have a finished product by then because that is well ahead, but we can certainly come with a presentation of where the direction of travel is, what the key messages are coming out. It just by September, it may not be a complete. Yeah, we will try to confirm which scrutiny. I think we have scrutiny meetings in September already.
Late September, yeah. So once that's confirmed, I can add that on.
Perfect. Lovely.
Can I ask whether so that's aiming to be before we put the proposal into government? Is there any plan once government have finally decided to tell us what's happening?
Not at the moment. We have no timeline of when that might be. The government have not indicated a date when they could respond to us. It depends how many proposals across the country go in and how long they take to review them. As soon as but we get a response, then we will take consideration of what has to happen after that.
Great. All right, so that's a big juicy one for our next meeting. Looking forward to that. And I think that we've got some work to do in general to tidy up the work programme and to clarify what we want to look at. And as ever, if committee members have got items that other ward members have brought to you or items yourself that you're interested in adding to our work programme, please do let me know.
The decarbonisation projects, that one's been outstanding for a long while. Have we solved that? Does that need to come off? Or
no,
that's a whole year and a bit, and I'm just wondering if it's going to happen or where we are with that, because I would have hoped that might have come forward.
That's Andrew Busby again, but I'm conscious we didn't ask him to comment on that this evening, so I'm happy to follow that up in writing.
I can update members. So yeah, the project is going well, and more than happy to bring back a verbal update towards the end of the project, where we can give you a proper overview of how the project went and any lessons that can be learnt for the next one.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that item was specifically about internal processes for grant management, because that item was specifically about using the decarbonisation project was just, I think, the symptom of there was a long period of time, I think, and I think it was regarding a scrutiny call-in waiver, given the timeframes for awarding a contract, I believe. So I think what we were interested in is the lessons learned from that process about managing grants that we've received in a timely fashion.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can update members with is that Salix Finance have extended their grant terms by a further year for the current phase, which is phase 4, which this council isn't doing. But so rather than a tight 2-year time frame for a project, that is now a 3-year time frame. So that lesson was learned really from Salix themselves, which we're bound by the rules of that grant. But everything has been successfully claimed and drawn down for year 2 of the Wantage and White Horse grants from Salix.
Right. Thank you ever so much, Andrew.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
We've got housing delivery strategy on there with no date, and also council-owned housing provision. Now, these must be related to some extent.
Yes. I think these items were related to it was a particular interest that we were interested in the council's direction of travel, because over the last couple of years we've started returning to being a landlord, purchasing property. So it was really having a discussion about the council's direction of travel. What was the kind of thinking behind that? I personally think that might have now been overtaken by local government reform, but perhaps we can have I mean, it's really up to the committee whether you think that's something we need to look at, or whether you don't think it's relevant particularly.
Well, does the cabinet think it's relevant? I mean, is there a housing delivery strategy in progress?
I'm happy to take that away as an action item for me. I'll go back through, I'll follow up, and we'll talk. I'll talk to officers and see about that item, and we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Or not, as the case would be. Nick.
Catherine, sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Chair. I'm having a bad 30 seconds.
Whatever you want to
all
call
round.
it, it's fine.
Yes. Okay. Oh, great one. There's already some conversations happening around that, which I've been having with the leader, and around specifically very high value projects and very long return projects, which this would clearly come under. So perhaps I'll send you an email after this and just sort of put you into that loop, and we can have that conversation. And you can feed back to your members there if that's helpful.
Lovely, thank you. That sounds like an excellent solution. Thank you, Nick. Okay. On that note, it's been a hot day. I think everybody needs a cold cider, or whatever.
I've got one other quickie one.
Yes.
The ground maintenance depot. Again, this comes under LGR and things. I'm wondering what kind of update we're looking for there.
I think essentially we need to, in the light of LGR, I think we need to go back through this whole work programme and look at all of these items.
I'm not sure that's relevant so much anymore, because we've gone ahead with the paperwork as of now.
Okay.
And how it gets used and put into the system will probably be up to a unitary of some sort.
Okay. I think this is all relevant as well to the document that's going to joint scrutiny next week about us taking control of our own work programme. So can I please invite you as a committee to have a good look at that work programme? Feel free to just strike stuff off if you don't see the point, if circumstances have changed, or if there's other items you think we should be looking at instead, particularly in the context of LGR. So yes, if there's items on there you just don't think are, you know, the mood is shifted or things have changed, feel free to let me know and recommend that we strike them off. So let's follow that up by email, and we can come back with a much cleaner programme perhaps in September.
I'm worried about Abbey House in as much as how much it's costing and how much we always worry about the beacon, and have worried about the beacon for a very long time because of its role within the council. But we haven't had a spotlight on some of the other council-owned property that we have, and how that's going financially, given somewhat rocky financial world for everybody.
Okay. Let's take
So, I don't know whether they just want Abbey House, or whether, because we also can't remember, is it a chancel we own?
No, I think it's best to have a lot of discussion.
I think there are several things we own that
yeah, I think it's best to talk outside the meeting and you can
Yeah.
come back with your work plan
Yeah.
recommendations.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that.
That sort of thing.
All right, I'll take that as an action. So I will follow up with the committee regarding the work programme and either removing items or adding new items.
Fleshing them out.
Yeah.
What you want.
All right. I think it's time to close the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you everybody online for your time this evening and for your contributions as ever.